Welcome to John Gets Games. Today I'm really excited to do a full 3-player run-through of the Staufer Dynasty, so let's jump right into it. Here we have a 3-player setup for a game of the Staufer Dynasty. I will be playing the yellow player. There are 3 endgame victory point cards. I'm going to keep them face up for me, but for the red and blue players, I'm going to keep them face down. I'm also not going to show the thinking process behind red and blue's turns, just yellow, and at the end of the game we'll reveal these when we see who wins. I'm just going to go ahead and jump into playing the game, and I'll explain how the game works as we go along. So here we have the action track. We can see it starts with yellow, and then it goes yellow, red, blue, blue, etc. all the way down. There are 3 of these tokens per player, so those are the 3 actions that we're going to be able to play on each round of the game. And this over here shows us that the game is going to be 5 rounds long, so 3 actions in each of these means you're going to be taking 15 actions in each game. We start the game with this top line right here, but I'll explain what that means in a little bit. So I'm yellow player, I get to begin the game. It's really simple. You choose one of 2 different options to evaluate this action pawn. We have this supply track over here and this move and deployment track. So I just take this pawn and I put it on one side or the other, and that's going to evaluate my turn. I'm going to start off by doing a supply action, which means I put it right here, and I start at the end of the arrow, and they're going to fill out going down, which means when we get to the move deploy, they'll start up here and they'll move their way up. So now I'm going to do my supply action. Over here is the supply board, and this is where we evaluate our supply action. We're going to pick one of the 5 options on this board, and then we're going to grab any treasure chests that are directly underneath the option that we grab. We can see these little icons in there, and those show the 2 different kind of resources in this game. Those are envoys and nobles, so essentially small dudes and big dudes. At the beginning of the game, we start with 1 noble and 4 of these envoys, but this is a really good way to get more. So you might be thinking, well, I definitely want to go for this, 2 here or 2 here, but I'm actually going to go for this treasure chest right here. It's only going to get me 1 envoy, but this treasure chest is really good. Now, the way these chests work is all the orange ones are one-shots. The moment you take it, you immediately discard it, and you get whatever's on there. This would be 3 victory points, and this would be an extra noble. These blue ones are a free action that you can take once at some point later in the game to get a benefit. This one right here lets me do a movement action for free, and I'll explain why that's really good pretty shortly. The brown ones are endgame scoring. That's all there is to my supply action, so now it's red's turn. So red is going to actually do a move and deploy action. Since they do the first one, it goes all the way down to the bottom, and this guy gets a little +1 envoy as a bonus for being the first person to take the action. So he takes 1 envoy, which is in his province, which is essentially the resources you don't have access to, and puts it into a supply, which is the ones he can immediately start spending. Now first, you get to do a move action if you like, and what that means is we've got this king pawn right here in Palermo, and this means that everybody is essentially here, and if you want to do an action in a different region that is not in the king's area, you have to pay resources to move to those regions. I'll get to that in a little bit because red is not going to want to do a move action. So red's going to skip the move action and jump right into deploying. Each region has 5 different office spots in it that you can put envoys and nobles to occupy them. And when this region scores, you're going to get victory points and other kind of goodies for having the majority or the second most of these office spaces here. However, we know that Palermo is not going to score this turn because there's no exclamation point right here. We see the exclamation points over here. This region is actually going to score at the end of this turn, but it's hard to get to, and I'll get to that in a little bit. So we're going to do this region for red, though, because there's some other good stuff here, even though it's not going to score immediately. In order to deploy into one of these offices, we need to pay envoys and nobles equal to the number that's associated with the office spot. So this would cost 3, this would cost 4. So red is going to spend 4 envoys in order to take this office spot here, and I'll explain why in a second. But when you pay for this deployment, you put the first one for the payment down on the office itself, so we have that spot taken. Then you're going to spread this payment around the map. So we kind of pull this down here, and we're going to put this payment into the sky area of Strasbourg, and we put the next one into the sky area of Aachen, and finally this last one in the sky of Milano. So you just spread out, going one at a time all the way around the map. And you can keep going around. If you spend like 8, you just keep plunking all the way around, dropping these guys off in the sky of various regions ahead of the king. Now that red has paid for this office here, red also gets the treasure chest that is associated with it. And this is the main reason that red's going to be doing that. And once again, it's one of these get to move for free actions. And you might be starting to see why that's good, because the scoring region is clockwise a very long way away from where the king is, so it's going to be hard to get there. At this point, it's probably good to explain how these scoring regions work and what the other scoring region is going to potentially be. So right now, we are just in the top round of the game, and we see that the scoring region is going to be the Rheinmagen, which, as we saw, was the one where this other token was. But there's also going to be one more scoring location, which is going to be the region with the least amount of treasure chests. Currently, we can see that Auchen has the least amount of treasure chests with only 3, but the more offices that get occupied, the less treasure chests there are, so this region could actually end up scoring this turn depending on how many people place offices there. But we won't actually place this token until the scoring round begins at the end of this turn. It's now Blue's turn, and Blue actually gets to take 2 turns in a row, which is pretty great for him in this moment. So the first action that Blue's going to do is to take a supply action. Now it goes underneath the yellow because we're following the arrow. So Blue is going to activate this top one right here, which is going to get 1 envoy, 1 noble, but it's also going to get this one-shot chest, which immediately gets him another noble. So he gets 1 envoy and 2 nobles from the provinces, and it goes into his supply. For Blue's second action, he's going to do the move deploy, and much like Red, he chooses not to actually move because there's good stuff in the region where the king is at, so he's just going to deploy. And he's going to deploy to this 5 spot because he also wants one of these awesome free movement tokens. So because he has all of these guys over here, lots of different resources, he can spend various ones over here, but you can choose to use envoys or nobles. And if you use a noble, well, first of all, you're forced to if it's a spot right here with a golden noble, but you can put nobles in any spot, and they count as 2 envoys for the sake of area majority. So I think he's going to actually spend 1 noble and then 4 envoys to go into that spot. And those envoys get paid by going 1, 2, 3, 4 in the clouds around the clockwise regions. At that point, Blue is going to get this chit right here, so now all of us actually have one of these move for free. And the reason that's good is because if you were to do a movement and then a deployment, it's much like the payment. You have to place units, whether they be nobles or envoys, into the clouds of every region towards where you want to go. So if you want to go to Auchen right here, you have to place a unit in the sky of Strasbourg, the sky of Auchen, and then pay for the deployment cost in Auchen here. So those free deployment discs could let us all whip around over here, which we know is going to score for free. Instead of spending 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 resources, we get to get over there for free and start dropping. So this is probably going to get really full pretty soon. Unfortunately for Red, however, if they try to go the move and deploy with their free movement token, they only have 1 envoy and 1 noble, so they couldn't afford to go in any of these spaces here, not even the 3. So Red is going to be forced to take a supply action. So Red takes a supply action. It makes sense, I think, for him to take this token right here, which is going to let him, one time in the future when they do a supply action, they can evaluate the top of here, but then take any chest they want from the bottom. And then for taking the spot, Red's going to get 2 more envoys into their supply. Alright, I think Yellow is going to do a move and deploy action. At this point, I don't know, I have a hard decision to make. It's looking like both these regions are going to score. This one has 3 chests, but it is closer to the king, so it would win the tiebreaker with Auchen, which also has 3 chests. So I need to think about where I can put my guys in the offices. And I got 6 of them to choose from. So I could place here and here, but then I'd be getting a pretty low score in both those regions, and I'd be getting rid of a lot of resources to do that. This region right here is going to give 6 points for the person who has the most, and 4 points for the second. And everyone there is going to get 1 envoy back, but that doesn't change the fact that I have to spend 3 to get there. So it would effectively cost 2 to place there, and I get a chest for that, which is pretty good, but that's kind of tough. You know, ultimately, the minimal gains I get for jumping into this region now, I don't think are worth spending this token. I'm going to go ahead and keep it. I think I'm going to jump over here instead and try to make gains. You know, I think I'm going to go big because I'm saving that token that lets me get a free move. I'm going to place this guy here into this 6th spot. So this is going to get me this treasure chest, which is going to get me 2, 5, 9, 14, 20 points based on the number of treasure chests I have. So getting more would be good. And then I need to spend my payment, which is 6 total. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. This also virtually guarantees I'm going to score this region. I'm going to win this region when it scores. It's definitely going to score now. So I can actually go ahead and put this little token down. And that's going to get me 10 plus 3 points, which is 13, which is quite a lot, even though I just spent a bunch of resources. All right, now it's Blue's turn, and Blue is going to move and deploy. Blue is going to use this token right here to get a free movement to warp around the board, and Blue is forced to play in the 3 spot here because Blue only has 3 resources. So Blue will go ahead and spend a noble down and then drop these resources down in the clouds. Now, there's a pretty important decision to be made here, and I'm going to do this the way I think we should do it. It'll make sense in just a minute. So I'm going to put the envoy here, and then the spent noble is going to go over here. At this point, blue is also going to get a brown treasure chest, and blue is probably still going to get second because red could place a noble here, but red is now forced to place a noble here because that would be 2 power versus 2 power, and the higher value of the office is the tiebreaker. Now it's red's turn. Red is going to deploy, and red actually is kind of forced to use his noble anyway because red only has 4 different units. Red is going to spend his free movement token, drop their noble down here, and then they put the cost around the board. I have the final action, and it's obviously going to be a supply because I have 0 goods. I just cannot place anywhere. And I'm pretty tempted to take this box here because it's going to give me lots of victory points, but I have no resources, like I said. So I'll go ahead and take this one. I get 3 victory points, and I'm going to get 1 noble, so that's kind of a start towards my next turn. Now that all the actions are done, we are going to do the scoring. So these are the 2 regions that score. We know that this is going to be here because it has the fewest number of treasure chests according to our round chart. Let's go ahead and do this one first. We see that red wins the majority here because it's 2 value versus 2 value, and he wins the tiebreaker. Oops, red needed to get this token. As a quick side note, this token does nothing until you get a second one, at which point you're allowed to get a permanent additional bonus to various actions, and I'll explain those when red or anyone else gets 2 of these. So red is first place, and this means that red is going to get 6 victory points, and blue is in second place, so blue is going to get 4. And this right here says that everyone who has an office in the region when it scores gets 1 envoy from the bank. Now we score Palermo over here. We see that yellow, me, I get to win because it's 2 value versus the others and it's the highest. So I get 10 points, but then over here it says also the first player also gets 3 points. So I get 13 points, and blue in second place is going to get 4 plus 1 or 5 points. When a region scores, all of the envoys and nobles on that region get taken and put into each player's respective province so they don't get access to them as currency yet. As you can see, this is the score after 1 round of the game. I'm doing pretty well. Now that all region scoring is done, we refill every single treasure chest spot from the regions that scored. And as you see, the regions that already had a treasure chest that wasn't taken, they just get multiple treasure chests, and whenever somebody takes that office, they're going to take all of the treasure chests in that line. Now we get to move the king, and this whole round area was completely randomly built. Only thing that was always there is this is always at the bottom, which just shows the endgame scoring conditions. So we look up here, we see the king is only going to move once this turn. So we look at the king over here, and the king always moves clockwise. So the king plunks down over here, moving once, but this is where all those weird payments come into play. Every single paid envoy or noble that's in this zone immediately goes into players' courts or supplies, so they can immediately use it on the next turn. This is the reason why blue decided to put an envoy here and then a noble here, because blue could tell that the king was going to move here and he would immediately get that noble back, and nobles are better than envoys. The first round is done, so we take these from the top and we throw them into the box. And now we take a look in here, we see that Strasbourg is going to be the next region to definitely be scoring. So we move this little exclamation point over to Strasbourg. We take the other one and we put it on top here. And what this says is the region with the most envoys or nobles in it is going to be the one that scores at the end of this turn. We can also see that the king is going to move twice next turn. So we're going to get a lot of payment back. So when we move to a couple regions, we know we're going to immediately get those resources the next turn. And the last part of cleanup is we just take all of these over here and we slide them back up. We don't change their order, and we now have the new player order for the next round. I forgot to mention, when you put the chests out on the map, you also put one more down at the bottom of each of these on the supply board for the next turn. I get to go first again because I took a supply action first last turn, and I only have 2 different resources, so I pretty much have to do a supply action for my starting action. I actually have several things to think about. First of all, we've got these purple tokens, which if I get 2 of them, I get some really great powers, but I don't have any yet. However, I have these options here, and what this token does, this chest, means you can spend it during the cleanup phase to not remove your person from that scoring region. They just get to stay there for potentially more scoring. Now, the reason that's important is that we know that Strasbourg is scoring this turn, and my hidden goal here is the Strasbourg card. This means I want to be in the majority of this region at the end of the game to get 12 points, or the second place to get 6 points. Because I know I'm going to want to place people here, I'm very tempted to take one of these so I can spend it and leave a person there. In fact, I'm so tempted that I'm going to do it. So I'm going to take this so that I can get 2 envoys, which is a pretty good deal, and I have this sitting in front of me. Now it's red's action, and red has 3 resources, which means he could actually just place right here, but I'm pretty sure he wants to take a supply action as well. And the reason for that is that this one's pretty good. You get a noble and an envoy, plus he gets a second purple chest. So let's get him his envoy and his noble. They go into his court, and now red has 2 of these chests. Now red does not need to use these immediately, but I think he's going to. Over here we have the 6 power options. The first one here is just a straight up 8 victory points, and it's in order, so there's an 8, a 6, and then a 4, and you can never have 2 of these. So red has the first shot at getting a bunch of points there, but I think that red is going to be interested in one of these other ones which gives a power. This one right here lets you put an envoy or a noble in a spot that somebody already has one in, so that's kind of cool. This one makes the cost of every office for the rest of the game 3. This one here will give you an envoy every time you take the supply action, so it's just a free extra envoy. This one lets you move anywhere on the board for a single cost. You put that into the region you move to. And finally, this gets you an extra 2 points when a region scores with your offices. I think red is pretty taken with this card right here, which lets him do super moves. So red puts this down in front of him, and for the rest of the game, red gets to move anywhere on the board for a single envoy or noble. Pretty awesome. Blue's gonna take the first move deploy action. Because it goes down there, he gets a free envoy, and then I'm pretty sure blue is going to go ahead and place it right here. Because he has the noble already, this spot requires a noble. It's only gonna cost 2 more envoys, so he has 1 more left for the future. And also, blue's going to get one of these purple ones, and blue just saw the thing that red got and is pretty jealous. So we put the cost down going forward. Also, we know that the king is going to move twice at the end of this turn, and blue just put 2 envoys out ahead of the king, so both of those are going to grab back up, put back in the court for blue to spend as a resource on the next turn, so that's pretty great. Blue gets this purple token, and now really wants a second one. At this point, I think I'm going to do a move deploy. I am not going to move because I want to place in Strasbourg, because I want to leave somebody off at the end. Unfortunately, I only have 4 different resources, but that's okay because the 4 is the one with the purple thing, and the purple thing is really good. So I'm going to drop a noble down because he's going to be staying, and I want to try and win this region. And then I'm going to spend these other 3 into the clouds, and I'm going to get 2 of those back at the end of this turn because the king's going to move those 2 spots. I get this purple thing, and now I really want a second one. At this point, I think red is going to do a move deploy. Again, not move. Even though he's got a super move, he has the 5 resources needed in order to place in this spot, dropping a noble, which is going to pretty much guarantee that he's going to win the zone. We pay the cost going around the table, which is pretty expensive, but red thinks it's going to be worth it, because red also gets this, which is a 1-shot, which lets him put a person in any office for a single cost, which means this combined with that superpower, he can put a person into any office on the board for only 2 power, which only once, but that's still great. Blue only has a single envoy, which means he can't do much, so he's going to take a supply action. And since he already has 1 purple chest, I think he's going to go for this. Take a second purple chest, 1 envoy from the province, and immediately spend these 2 purple chests for a new power. So there's only 2 of each of these, and it's relatively early in the game. I think blue is also going to take this really fast movement card, so I'm not going to have a shot to get it. Now I take an action, and I have 0 anything, so I'm definitely going to go for the supply. Now I would definitely like to get one of these treasure chests here, but I have 0 people, and I look at the board over here, and I know the king is going to move twice, which is going to get me 4 envoys and no nobles, so this is tough. I think considering I know how many I'm going to get next turn, I am going to go ahead and grab this. So now I can essentially leave 2 people behind at some point in the game, and I'm going to get 1 noble into my court. Blue only has 2 envoys, which is not going to be enough to do any of the regions that are around here, so blue is going to take a supply action. Blue also knows he's going to be getting 4 different envoys back on his next turn, and I think blue is going to take the double envoy. Blue would like this treasure chest over here, but blue needs resources next turn. And finally red, and red has no supply at all, so he's going to go over here to supply. Red can see he's going to get 5 resources back on the next turn when the king travels. And despite the fact that 5 is a lot, red is going to go here and get 1 noble and 1 envoy and just ignore these for now, because red wants a big turn with that really fast movement. Alright, it's time to score. So we see that the second scoring region is going to be the one with the most nobles and envoys. And when we look at the board, we see there's only 1 region with any right now. And because a region can never score twice, that just means we're only going to have 1 scoring region this turn. So red wins this region with a noble, so red's going to get 7 points. Also, 2 envoys from his province into his courtyard. I win second place with my noble here, so I'm going to get 3 points plus 1 envoy. And blue, unfortunately, gets nothing. At this point, we empty our office seats. However, I'm going to spend one of these don't take my guy out tokens. So my guy is going to remain, and the other 2 go back into provinces. Now we replenish our chests. And the king is going to move 2. So the king goes 1, 2, and all of these envoys and nobles immediately go back into all of our courtyards to spend next turn. We remove the turn 2 round tiles to the box, and now we see that Milano is going to be the next scoring region. And this just happens to be where the king is already. We also see that the region with the most number of envoys and nobles is also going to score, potentially Milano or maybe a second one. Also, we see the king is going to move 3 at the end of this turn and the following turn, so there's going to be a lot of resources at the end of this game. And finally, we reset the action track. I think I'll be starting off with a supply action. That's because I really want one of these placed in an office for only one, and I think I'll go ahead and take this one for a noble and an envoy from my province. Red has a ton of resources. I think Red's definitely going to take advantage of getting a free envoy and doing the first move place. Red decides he wants to place a person way over here. So because of this power, he only spends 1 and he puts it in the region he goes to. So I'll drop that over here. And then he's going to have to spend 3 resources on the spot right here. So he puts 1 envoy down and then 2, 3 in order to take both of these tokens. Blue is also going to do a move deploy, but Blue's not going to move this time. Blue's just going to go ahead and put an envoy in the 5 spot here, which is going to cost 4 more of these. And then Blue gets this token right here, which lets him grab other chests on the supply board, not the ones that are underneath the spot he takes. Now it's back to me, and I think I need to get on this deploying thing as well. I know that Milano is going to score, so I think I really need to get in on here. I'm a little bummed that Blue went all the way up there, so, I mean, I could put a noble here, but, well, that was probably good. I think I'm going to do that. So I'm going to spend this noble here, and then 3 more resources in order to take this spot right here, which is pretty good because, first of all, these 3 I'm going to immediately get back next turn because I know the king is going to move 3, but also we get this purple chest, and we already have a purple chest, so woohoo, I get a bonus. We're about halfway through the game. I think I'm going to grab this one right here, which makes every office I go to cost 3. Now it's Blue's turn, and I think Blue cannot pass up this really good supply turn. Because Blue has this token here, he can take the treasure chests from any one of these columns he wants to, and then take from the top. So I think Blue's going to grab this one right here, which is going to be a noble and an envoy from the province, but of course Blue is going to take these 3 treasure chests right here. It's going to immediately score him 2 victory points for this one. And then Blue already has a chest, so that's good. And then, you know, more powers are good. Red gets a double action here, and there's going to be the last ones for him in this turn. So Red's going to open up by doing a move deploy. And he's going to spend this, spend 1 person to go into an office token in order to move to this zone here and then drop down a noble in the 5 spot. Since it only costs 1, you don't actually put any payments out into the clouds. And then Red's going to get this bonus here, which means at any point when taking any action, he can take that action pawn and cram it in to the top of the supply track here to essentially go first next turn. And for Red's second action, he's actually going to take the pawn. He's going to do move deploy, but he's going to cram it on top of the supply track, burning this bonus that he just got. And then he's going to put a guy here, and then put him up into the clouds going around, which is going to get him this token, which immediately gets him 2 envoys back. At this point, considering the second region to score is the one with the most envoys and nobles, it looks like Milano is going to be the only one to score this turn. I think it's probably worth it for me to spend 3 of these resources to come in first here. So I'll drop 1 here, and then 2, 3, and I get this, which is another free movement around the board. I already got 1, so these are going to be good in the end game. Of course, I have to actually spend the action, and now finally Blue gets to go. Blue has a lot of resources, so I think he's going to do a move deploy. And he's got second place locked up here in Milano. There's really no reason to spend a bunch of resources to try and get first place. I mean, you'll get 5 extra points, but that's quite a bit of stuff. So Blue's going to spend 1 envoy. He's going to fly over here and then drop off another envoy over here, spending 2 more in order to go to the spot and take this token. This is the second purple token again for Blue, so Blue gets another bonus. I think Blue's going to go ahead and grab this guy right here as well to get a discount on placing guys in offices. And that's the end of the round. So we go into scoring. We know that the place with the most envoys and nobles is going to score, but we see that that is actually going to be Milano. No one else beats that out, so Milano's going to be the only one to score this turn. Now we see that I actually have 3 power here because I have a noble and an envoy. So that's 3 versus the 1 of Blue and the 1 of Red. So I win, and then Blue is second, Red is third. So I get 9 points. And then everybody who goes in this zone gets 2 points. So all 3 of us get 2 points. Now we go ahead and empty our office seats. However, I'm going to spend my other one of these tokens in order to save this noble. And the reason I'm doing that is because I have a special endgame card that gets me 7 points for each one of this pattern that I can establish. I already have this guy out here, and so having that there creates one of these patterns, so that's 7 points in the bank as long as they're there at the end of the game. But the rest of them go back to provinces. Now we refill chests in the region that scored, and the supply track here. We can see that the king is going to travel 3 spaces. That means he goes 1, 2, 3, and all of these resources are going to come back into our courts to immediately be spent next turn. We return the turn 3 tiles to the box, and now we see that Auchen is going to be the next one to be scored. So that goes from here to here. And that the zone with the minimum number of chests is going to be the one that's secondarily scored. So we'll probably be scoring 2 regions this turn. And we reset the action track. Red is going to go ahead and do a supply for his first action. Red's going to spend this token, which allows him to activate this get a noble, get an envoy, and then take from any stack he wants. So I think he's going to grab this one because he already has a purple, and this is a really good token. This is Red's second purple, so he's going to cash it in and get a new power. And Red's just going to take this 8 endgame victory point card. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and do the first move deploy action, which is going to get me an extra envoy. And I know that Auchen is going to be scoring at the end of this round, so I think what I'm going to do is spend this token right here, which lets me place for only 1 cost. And then I'm going to spend one of these move for free tokens right here in order to just take my noble and drop it right down on this spot here and take this chest. And this is my second brown chest, so that's looking at 5 points there. Blue has a double action, so Blue is going to first do a supply, and he's going to take 1 envoy for this slot right here, also get these 2 tokens. He only has 1 purple chest, so this doesn't activate yet. For Blue's second action, he's going to do a move deploy, but he's not actually going to move. He's going to go where the king is. He's going to spend this token, which lets him place on any office for only 1 resource, and drop a noble down on the 7 spot here, which gets him these 2 tokens. And this is the second purple, so Blue gets to get another bonus card. And Blue's just going to take this 6-point card right here. I think I'm going to do a move deploy action. I'm going to move 1 zone over from the king, and then deploy into this spot right here, which costs me 2 more resources going ahead. I'm going to get this 3-point chit right here, so I get those immediately. And then I get my 3rd chest, so that was effectively worth 4 points to me, so pretty good. Red is going to do a move deploy, but he's not actually going to move. He's going to go where the king is. He's going to drop an envoy into the 5 here, and then spend the price going around the board. And then he's going to grab this 2-point chest right here for immediate 2 points. I'm going to go ahead and do a move deploy, and I'm going to spend my free movement token in order to go all the way over to Milano, and I'm going to drop into this 5 spot. But because I have this card right here, which lets me only spend 3 for offices, I only get to spend 3 for that. And then I get this really great token, which lets me go 1 place for 1. Blue is going to do a move deploy, but not move. He's going to deploy in Palermo as well, and it only costs him 3 because of his power, so he goes 1, and then 2, 3. He gets this power for a free movement, which is not that big of a deal for him, but he's now back in first place in Palermo, which is probably going to score. For the last action, Red is going to do a move deploy. He's going to use his power to travel anywhere for 1, to travel all the way around over here, and then build into the 5 spot here. When he does that, he's going to spend his go into an office for only 1 resource, which is fine for him because he's about to pick 1 more for going there, as well as for victory points immediately. And now we go into scoring. We know that the second region to score is the one with the least amount of treasure chests, and that is going to be Palermo, so it is going to score as well. Let's go ahead and do Auchen first, though. I was actually the only one to go here, somewhat surprisingly, so I'm going to get 9 points for that. And then I also get to draw chests equal to the number of players, which is 3, and then choose 1. I would give them to the other players in this zone if there had been any. I draw this right here. I think I'm just going to take the 5 because I don't currently have any purples. And now Palermo scores. So we see that Blue is winning with 3 power in the region, so Blue's going to get 10 plus 3 points for 13. And Red is in second place, so Red gets 4 plus 1 or 5. At this point we clean up. However, Red is going to spend his don't take my guy away on the guy on the 5 spot here, so the rest of these go back to provinces, as does this guy down here. We go ahead and refill the treasure chests in the zones that scored, and the supply board. And now the king is going to move 3. So he goes 1, 2, 3, and all these come back into our courts. We get rid of the turn 4 tokens, and then we're going to go ahead and move the scoring tokens, it's going to be in Augsburg and wherever the king is. And the king is in Milano, and there is Augsburg. So those are our final two scoring regions for the last turn of the game. As you can see on all the other end tokens, we see this is the icon that shows getting rid of all the people in the offices, and this shows replenishing the chests. Well, that does not happen on the final turn, so we're not going to be removing people from their offices on this final turn, which is pretty important. This just shows we're going to score our hidden victory points, score our brown chests, and then get 1 point for every purple and turquoise chest we have left over. And now we set the action order for the final round of the game. Red is going to start by doing a move deploy action, which gets him a free envoy. And then using his special power, he can move anywhere for 1. He's going to move all the way over here, drop a guy down there, and then go into the 4 spot here. And then he spends the rest of the money for that placement. And he's going to grab this token here, which lets him place in an office for only 1. Blue is going to do a move and deploy. And he's going to go 1 region ahead, up here, and then deploy into the 3 spot down here. That's going to get him one of these tokens that lets him place in a spot for 1. Red is going to do a move deploy, and he's just going to place down here for 2 more resources and spend the cost going around. He's not going to use one of these tokens because they're worth 1 victory point at the end of the game, and he doesn't need it yet. And for placing there, he's going to get 4 points immediately. Blue is going to do another move deploy, and he's going to place down here. He also has one of these tokens, but he's going to hold on to it for now as well. He grabs this chest right here, and he already has 2, so that's 3 total, and then pays the cost for the spot. I'm going to take a supply action. With only 5 guys here and no good travel cards, I think I need to take this one. Unfortunately, it's only going to get me 1 envoy, but it lets me fly around, and I'm pretty sure I want to do a big flight around the map before the game's done. Red's final action of the game is going to be move and deploy because he had so many resources this turn. Red's going to use his special flying power to go all the way around the board for just 1, and then he's going to drop into this 4 spot, ditching one of these tokens here to go there, and then he's going to grab both of these, which is going to give him a noble, but there's no endgame scoring for that. Now I'm going to do a move deploy. I'm going to spend my 1-shot free movement to fly all the way around the board and go into this 3 spot here. And I think I am going to spend this in order to place that there and then not have to spend any more. This gets me 2 envoys and 2 victory points immediately. And now it's Blue's turn, who will also do a move deploy. And Blue seems relatively upset, but he travels around here. He's going to drop a guy off there and then spend his place there for 1 for his final envoy to go onto the 7, which is going to get him this, but he doesn't have a second one. And for the final action of the game, I will also do a move deploy, and I will move 1, 2, 3, and then drop down into this 3 spot here. And I spend my final 2 there to pay for that, and then I'm going to grab this token here. The reason I did that is I have this endgame scoring card, which is going to give me 7 points for each one of these patterns I make, and I already had this guy right here, so if I jumped over here and placed over here, that's 1 more pattern, so that's a 7-point move for me. Alright, that's the end of the actions, although we do a standard scoring now. So we look at Milano, which is scoring because it has the king in it, and we see that I am currently winning with 3, so I get 9 points plus 2. Red is in second place, so red gets 4 points plus 2. And blue's in third place, so blue just gets the plus 2. And now Augsburg here, we see that red is winning, so red gets 8 points. And blue is in second place, so blue gets 3. This means that red gets to draw 2 chests, pick one of them, and give the other to the second place person. Because he knows blue has a bunch of brown, red's going to take the brown and just give blue this purple. Blue is not going to cash these in because blue already has one of these victory point endgame scoring cards, and you can't have a second one, so this 2 points right here is better than cashing it in for anything else. And since this is the final round of the game, we don't do a cleanup phase, we're going to jump right into endgame scoring. For the purpose of endgame scoring, these chests and all of these payments don't actually matter, so I'm going to get rid of them real quick to make it clearer to see. And what the heck, I'll get rid of this action thing in the middle and replace it with the score track. As of this moment, I am definitely winning. I have 2 of these 25s right here, so I am currently at 58 points. Red only has a single one of these, so red is at 46 points. And blue also only has a single one of these, so blue is only at 35 points. But there's a lot of points in the endgame scoring, so let's go through those. Let's start with red. First of all, red gets 12 points if they are in charge of Augsburg at the end of the game. And sure enough, red is winning that, so red gets 12 points. Second of all, red gets 7 points for each time they can make this pattern with different offices. So you can't use the same office twice to make this pattern. So let's see, red has 1 person here, 2 people here, so that's 1 pattern. Red has that pattern again here where they have those 2 guys right there. And finally down here, red has that pattern 1 more time. So red gets this 3 times for 21 points. Lastly, red is going to get a sliding scale of points based on the number of 5 value offices red has. Red is currently in 1, 2, 3 of them, which means red gets 15 points. Red has a single brown chest for 2 victory points, and 1 remaining chest for 1 point. Now blue needed to be in charge of Palermo, and sure enough, blue was able to pull that off in the last turn of the game. So blue gets 12 points. Unfortunately, blue was not able to make even one pattern of this. He tried, he could have made this pattern and not done Palermo, and they're both 12 points, so that's why he was so upset on that last turn, so he gets no points for this. And finally, blue gets a sliding scale of points for the number of 3 value offices he's in, and blue's in 1, 2, 3 of them, which is going to give him 9 points. Blue does have 3 of these brown chests, so that is worth 9 victory points there. Blue also has 4 random sorted unused chests at the end for 4 points. And finally, blue gets 6 points for this endgame victory point card. And finally, we knew that I needed to be in charge of Strasbourg at the end of the game, which I am, so I get 12 points. We knew that we were gunning for this pattern right here for 7 points each, so let's see how many of those we have. We've got 1 for these 2 here, and then we have 2 separate patterns right here with these offices, so that's 2, 3, 3 total. So I get 7 times 3, or 21 points. Lastly, I get 15 victory points for each set of 3, 4, 5 I was able to make out on the board. And I was only able to make that once with a 3, a 4, and a 5 here, so 15 more points. I also have 3 of these treasure chests for 9 points. And finally, a single unused treasure chest for a single point. One last thing, it looks like I forgot that red had this endgame victory point card, so let's add those 8 points. And there's our final score for the game. We see that I won with 116 points, red was pretty close behind with 105, and unfortunately blue was not able to survive not scoring that pattern, unfortunately, and only ended the game with 75 points. And there you have it, a full 3-player game of the Staufer Dynasty. I had a lot of fun playing Staufer Dynasty for this video. I think it is probably a little bit suspicious that yellow won, considering yellow was me in the game, but I tried to do the correct thing for red and blue, and ultimately I think I just kind of forgot about blue's endgame pattern scoring until a little bit too late, which is probably not going to happen when you're actually just playing one character, not juggling 3 at once. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I'm sure I made some strategic blunders. I'm sure I made a couple rules mistakes or forgot to move a thing when I said I was going to. Please let me know down below if you saw anything like that, and I'll put an annotation in the video. If you'd like to see more full game playthroughs and game reviews, which I tend to do more often, please consider subscribing to my channel. Thanks for watching.